Uh-oh, a warm front is coming through. Today we're going to learn about air masses, and tomorrow we'll learn about fronts. So what is an air mass? An air mass is a large body of air with similar temperature, humidity, and pressure. Air masses form over large land or large water masses. If you look to the picture on your right, you will see different types of air masses. Whether an air mass is warm or cold depends on the temperature over which the mass forms. So there are four main types of air masses. The first is tropical air mass. A tropical air mass is made up of warm air that form over the tropics. Then you have the polar air masses. These are cold air masses that form over the poles. Maritime literally means water. So maritime air masses form over the ocean, where it's very humid. And then continental. The word continental means land. So these air masses form over the land and are made up of dry air. Let's first look at continental. As we said previously, continental means land. A continental air mass forms over land. So anywhere where you see land on this map, a continental land air mass can form. Maritime. Maritime means water. Maritime air masses form over water. Polar. Polar means it forms over the poles. North Pole, South Pole, it doesn't matter, as long as it's cold, which these air masses are. Tropical. These air masses form over the tropics, which is near the equator. Anything that forms over the equator is going to be made up of a bunch of hot air, so the air's going to be pretty warm. Okay, let's look at these air masses. Notice that they are abbreviated. The first letter discusses what type of land or where the air mass is formed, whether it's formed over water or land. A little c means continental. This means it forms over land. A little m means maritime. This means the air mass forms over water. Notice to the top right of your screen. There's a little m and a large P. Little m stands for maritime. We know that this air mass forms over the water. Look at the centermost air mass. There's a little c and a large P. The little c represents continental. We know that this air mass is made up of a bunch of dry air because it formed over a continent. It formed over land. Now, look at the second letter. These second letters are capitalized. The second letters tell us the temperature of the air mass. You'll notice that there is a letter that we have not discussed yet, which is A. This just means Arctic. It's even colder than polar, basically. But if you look once again to the right of your screen, you'll see a little m, big P. This means maritime polar. Polar means it's a bunch of cold air. And because it formed over the water, it's got a lot of moisture in it. Now look back to the center. A little c, big P. This means it's dry, cold air because it's continental polar. Now let's look at the bottom of your screen. Towards the lower left, you'll see a little m and a big T. This means maritime tropical. This air mass formed over water, so it's very moist. And because it formed in the tropics, it's moist, warm air, moist, warm air. Look to the centermost bottom air mass. You'll see a CT. This means continental tropical. This is tropical air that formed over a landmass. It's dry, hot air.